Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this online lecture from CIDI. Whether you're tuned in from Zoom, Facebook, or the CIDI website, thank you everyone for joining us. I'm happy to host the event of this evening. My name is Elke van der Raaf, and I work at CIDI. And this evening we are reflecting on 20 years since the Israeli withdrawal from Southern Lebanon. And for the event of this evening, we have a very special guest, Jonathan Elkhoury, who will tell about his life as a Lebanese refugee living in Israel. I just would like to quickly remind everyone, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in Zoom, in the Q&A. If you're not in Zoom at the moment, but you do have a very pressing question to ask us, you can do this with Zoom. You can find the link to the Zoom event on the CIDI website or in the comment. So please feel free to ask any question regarding this topic in the Q&A. But without further ado, I would like to welcome tonight's speaker, which is Jonathan Elkhoury. Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Elkan, and thank you, CIDI, for having me. I would like to send greetings to everyone from Israel. I'm currently in Nahariya, in northern Israel, and it's actually pretty funny. I will be talking about my personal story as a Christian who was born in Lebanon in a small village in the south of Lebanon to a Christian family of 14 generations of priests. For whoever knows Arabic, Elkhoury in Arabic means the priest. I'm now located in Israel, about 10 minutes drive to the Libanese border, where the rest of my family is still living today. And it's kind of both really far away because I'm not able to visit, I'm not able to go, I'm not able, to live or even visit my homeland. Yet the differences between these two countries that are really close to each other is so far and wide away. So I will be trying to speak about it a little bit about, living in Israel while the rest of the family is still in Lebanon, in this not only foreign but enemy state to the state that I'm currently living in. Basically, I will share from my own perspective about how I felt when I was 9 when I moved here, about our integration to the Israeli society, my national service, and basically about my activity in the last few years in public diplomacy regarding to Israel. I would like to start again over and say hi to everyone. Like I said, my name is Jonathan Elkhoury, and I was born in a small village in southern Lebanon. The reason that I'm in Israel today is because my father served in the South Lebanon Army. The South Lebanon Army was an official army that was recognized by 3 parties, by the UN, by the Lebanese government, and by the Israeli government. It was basically an army that were working as an ally and, shoulder to shoulder, brother in arms with the IDF. And basically they got all the trainings by the IDF, and even my dad received his officer rank in Israel in Bahad Echad. This is, the really known officers base in Israel. And the reason for the establishment of the South Lebanon Army was because of the civil war that happened in Lebanon. During the 60s and 70s, the extremist Muslim organizations, both the PLO and later on Hezbollah terrorist organization that is still controlling Lebanon till today, they decided to partner up and fight not only against Israel, but to fight against the Lebanese who created Lebanon, who are indigenous to Lebanon. So eventually, while they noticed that there's only one group of people that are suffering from the same enemy that we were suffering in South Lebanon. They were the PLO that not only persecuting us in South Lebanon, they were shooting rockets towards Israel and executing horrific terror attacks. Even here in Nahariya, one of the horrific terror attacks that happened when Balghuti actually slaughtered a 4-year-old child next to her father in the beach here in Nahariya. And this partnership continued for 18 years. They eventually, our parents and the Israeli society and the leaders of the Israeli society and the IDF themselves, they thought that this is a great opportunity to get to peace through the people themselves and not only by governments. And the partnership eventually stopped when Israel decided to withdraw from South Lebanon. In 23rd of May 2000, Ehud Barak, the former president, the former prime minister of Israel, decided to do a one-way withdrawal without any agreements. That led to Israel leaving Lebanon in about 24 hours. But one of the things that happened that suddenly we, the Christians in Lebanon, found ourselves kind of alone, found ourselves in a dangerous place because Hassan Nasrallah have mentioned only 2 days prior to the withdrawal that he's going to persecute everyone who was part of the South Lebanon army. He said that we have 3 options. The first option was that we flee with the enemy to their state, that means Israel. The second option was that our parents had the choice to go and surrender to the authorities. Whoever did that, by the way, suffered a lot in prison. They were tortured. Some of them were killed during their sentence in prison. Some of them are still in prison till today. Some of them were able to go out of jail only because they bribed and they paid a lot of money to be able to leave the prison. And the third option was to be slaughtered in your home while hugging your own mother. That was the quote that's said by Hassan Nasrallah. He said that we're not coming to you with peace, we're coming with rifles. And after we heard that, suddenly a huge chaos happened in South Lebanon. In the morning of the 24th of May, suddenly I woke up to huge amount of cars standing in front of our home because the road in front of our home was the only road that leads to Israel. So everyone was basically standing in line to be able to enter Israel till they opened the border and let them get asylum here. My dad decided to flee that day, but my mom, brother, and I, we stayed another 1.5 years in Lebanon. They thought at the beginning that there's going to be a solution, that my dad will go back to Lebanon and we will continue to live in our homeland in a peaceful way. But immediately when the last soldier of the IDF left Lebanon, Hezbollah entered from the other side and they immediately started occupying our villages. They started entering our homes. They started bullying the women and the children, beating up whoever they wanted, coming and taking whatever they wanted. Even in the first day, the Hezbollah did a huge kind of a walkout throughout the villages to say, now we are in charge. We are the chief in charge. And a group of women with children came to our home. We were, all standing in front of the house to kind of welcome them because we couldn't do anything else. We had to go there and stand in support. And suddenly the group of women asked my mom, where's the bathroom? My mom showed them, she said that the bathroom is downstairs. But instead of going downstairs, they went upstairs to the bedrooms. And they immediately started taking stuff, and we couldn't do anything because we knew that, if we even say one word, we could be in huge trouble and God knows what would happen to us. And that continued for another 1.5 years till my mom decided that it's about time to leave Lebanon. These 1.5 years, kind of thinking about it, I remember only few parts of it. The most crazy parts where they just entered and did some trouble in the village. Because it was weird because my dad wasn't there, and no one told me where my dad is. The situation was really nervous. We started locking doors. We never locked the doors in Lebanon prior to the withdrawal of the IDF because we were in real partnership. We used to see the IDF soldiers walking by our houses. They would come. We would invite them for dinner, for lunch. We had a really good relationship. That means the scenery of the IDF in our village wasn't as an enemy staying, near us, but whether as a partner. And then when my mom decided that we should leave, the only way that we could leave Lebanon was through the airport. The border with Israel was already closed. The border that my father crossed it used to be called, well, we still call it till today, the good fence, because it was good, because we thought that a good thing would become out of it. Hundreds of Lebanese would come and work inside of Israel during these 18 years. So that's why it was good, because people would come to Israel, and some Israelis that I know of would go and visit Lebanon as well. They would have like kind of a touristic adventures in limited areas in Lebanon. And the same thing goes to Israel. I visited Israel a few times before the border was shut. So when my mom decided to leave, we could leave only by a plane, and we didn't have passports. It's not like today when you're born you immediately go to the Ministry of Interior or to the Interior Office and you get a passport. In Lebanon, you had to request for one, and you had to give reasons why you're flying and when are you coming back. They wanted to make sure that everyone who flies out will return to Lebanon, because there is huge immigration, negative immigration outside of Lebanon. And when we came to the office, suddenly the person who was there asked my mom, "Where's your husband? You can't request passports for your kids if your husband is not present." And it took us another 6 months to kind of declare that my dad is not in the area. They didn't say that he's in Israel. They said that they kind of kicked him out of the village and that my grandfather is now in charge of us. And after this 6 months, we were able to receive the passports and basically buy a ticket to Cyprus. I wasn't told that I'm coming to Israel. I was 9 the day that my mom woke me up at 5 a.m. in the morning and told me, "Hey, Jonathan, you need to pack like some stuff that you like, some important and meaningful stuff, and we're gonna head to some relatives in Beirut." So I immediately, being so young, I took 2 teddy bears that my grandmother gave me a few months earlier at my birthday. And these were the most important things that I wanted to take at the time. I think if I go back now, these are the things that I will take with me again. So I'm holding 2 teddy bears. Suddenly we started driving and we arrived at the airport. I can ask my mom, "Where are we going?" And she said that we're gonna fly to the United States to visit some relatives who are living there. And I said, okay. Like I met only a few times these relatives. But suddenly we landed after 30 minutes. And my mom kind of changed the story again and said that we might meet my dad in a few days. And once we landed in Cyprus, it was kind of quick. We landed in Cyprus. There was a person who came to pick us from the airport. He took us to the Israeli embassy, and from the Israeli embassy, after a few hours, we already had the flight booked to Israel. So basically, after 24 hours, we were on a plane landing in Ben Gurion Airport in Israel. My dad came to the airport. It was about 3 a.m. in the morning, and we did all our flights at night because my mom was afraid that someone would recognize us. We almost had this crazy thing at Larnaca Airport, but I might tell you that if you ask me about it later on in the question section. when we came here, after a year and a half, I didn't recognize my dad. My mom was yelling, "Here's your father." He was literally in front of me, and I didn't recognize him because he gained a lot of weight. He stopped smoking. He cut off his mustache, and he was completely different than what I remembered. And when he took us to Naharia, where I'm staying now. And here he took us to a place where the Israeli government settled all the South Lebanon army families. So basically, in the first year and a half, during my family's stay in Lebanon, the Israeli government took care of the South Lebanon army families here. They located them in small resorts or hotels, or even yeshuvim or kibbutz that was able to kind of absorb us in. And for a year and a half, we settled there, and we lived there till the Israeli government decided to give us the opportunity to go and start our new life. They opened special ulpan for our parents in order to study Hebrew. They started helping them in steps to getting into the business, to jobs, basically, in Israel. Because the majority of the South Lebanon army who came to Israel, they were an average age of 50 to 55. The wide majority of them didn't finish even middle school, let alone any diploma, any higher education diploma. So they had to work in hand jobs, but they had to know Hebrew. So they opened the Upan, they opened special school for the South Lebanon army kids. I remember that when I arrived, I was in that school only for 1 month, because then my father decided to move us to Haifa. Because Haifa is a much bigger city. There's more job opportunities there. And we thought that we're going to be integrated as well with the Christian population that lives in Haifa. Haifa is a really mixed city that, that connects by the sea, and there's a lot of different types of people. There are Druze, Christians, Muslims, even Bedouins who relocated from the villages surrounding us. So we thought that we're going to start our integration there, but suddenly we found ourselves in between two communities. We are not Jewish, so we weren't really connected to the Jewish community in a religious way. But on the other hand, the Arabic community and the Christian community refused to accept us in their communities. They claimed that we are traitors because we worked with Israel and because we collaborated with Israel, that we betrayed the Arab world for basically protecting our lives. And we found ourselves in between these two communities. But the first community, and I think till today, that really hugged us was the Israeli community, the Jewish community. The Jewish public schools opened their doors for us. And I was the only Arab-speaking kid in my whole school. So the school took me as a project. I had a teacher who took me in a different day, different hour to teach me Hebrew. And it took me only 3 months to start and learn to speak fluent Hebrew. Later on, when we grew up, when we went to middle school and high school, we were a group of about 50 kids from the South Lebanon Army community in the same school. So we had some person in charge of us if we needed anything or any help in school. They opened special after school hours for us to help us finish with above average diplomas, and the majority of us finished with really high scores. And something that my middle school and high school did that I really appreciate, because they kind of showed me the way into the Israeli society. The school decided that on the National Memorial Day for the IDF, for the fallen soldiers, and for those who died by terrorist attacks in Israel, that we would be able to read a prayer for the South Lebanon Army fallen soldiers. The South Lebanon Army has 550 known fallen soldiers, and between 550 and 650. And this small gesture it was kind of all our lives back then, because we kind of get a recognition for this partnership, that we are not forgotten, that we are part of the history of Israel, that we are part of something bigger than just only, you know, us. And I did that for 6 years, from 7th grade till I graduated high school. Till today, we speak about it. The school gave me the opportunity to go to every class and speak about the South Lebanon Army, who we are, and our personal story to everyone who would listen. And that's basically what I did. I kind of dedicated my life till today to talk about this partnership that happened. And in the last few years, when I finished high school, I received a draft to the IDF. The South Lebanon Army community receives it, unlike the Christian and the Muslim and Bedouin communities in Israel. In Israel, there's a mandatory draft, and all Jewish citizens, once they're 18, they have to serve in the military, both women and men, and the Druze male as well. And we receive it as well. And we were given the option if we want to continue our draft or not. My brother served for 3 years in the military. He was in the police department. And I decided eventually, because I didn't get the unit that I wanted, I decided to do national service instead for 2 years. I did it in Rambam Facility Hospital because I wanted to do something with the community. I wanted to be, you know, part of something. And it always, the question wasn't if I'm going to serve in the military or not. The question was always, is it going to be a military service or a national service? Because I believe that every person, every citizen, no matter where he lives, he needs to contribute to the society that he lives in. He needs to be part of the bigger community, not only seeing himself, but seeing the other parts that might need help, that might need assistance. And this connection eventually makes us more united as a society, and not, you know, separated small societies that everyone to his own. And during my national service, I started advocating for Christians in Israel to join the military service or national service, out of this vision of us being part of the general society. And when I finished my national service in 2012, I joined an organization that was called the Christian Empowerment Council. It's known as well as the Israeli Christian Recruitment Forum. It was created and led by a priest from Nazareth, an Orthodox priest. And we had huge success actually in gaining public opinions, and even public speak about the military service or national service, because up to that point, we had about 35 people joining the military from the Christian society each year. And in the first year of activity, we had 150 people listing to the military. That was huge numbers that suddenly made even, you know, the majority of the Jewish and public newspapers in Israel. I did, for 3 years, I was the spokesman as a volunteer for that organization. And during that time, I started talking a little bit more, not only in terms of internal stuff of the minorities in Israel and in general life in Israel, and about the South Lebanon Army story. I started talking about Israel as a country, and Israel as a whole society that has, you know, people from more than 70 different countries around the world, that we have more stuff that connects us that actually, you know, makes us further away, that we can be both Christians, you know, Arabs, Christians, or whatever you like to call yourself or identify yourself, and both be Israeli. For example, I consider myself to be both Israeli, Christian, Libanees. I'm part of the LGBTQ community as well. I'm part of the South Lebanon Army community. So there's a lot of things that makes me the person who I am today. And it's not a choice, because I was always asked, like, what are you? Are you Israeli or are you Lebanese? And I didn't want to make this choice because I'm both. I'm not obligated to choose. And once I started speaking in all that matters, a lot of people kind of liked the idea of being more than just one thing. You know, I didn't invent that. It's way, you know, it's way bigger than me. It's way wider than me and pretty older than me in a lot of ages. But I kind of took that not by learning about it, but basically by living it day by day. Because when I walk in the street, I always have my cross on, and people ask me about it. And when I speak Arabic, the Arabs in Israel immediately recognize my dialect as not Israeli or Palestinian dialect, and they immediately ask me, where are you from? So I say that I'm from Lebanon, and we kind of started this whole conversation about, you know, the South Lebanon Army and Lebanon and in general things. Sometimes it's not that pleasant conversations because some of them are really heated, and some of them almost finished of me being beaten up by someone. But thank God that didn't happen yet, and hopefully it will not happen in the future. And it's kind of living day by day by these multiple identities and making people basically understand that once I accepted of me being all of those, I kind of enjoyed living my life more because I don't have to ask again every day that I wake up, so what am I today? So I'm kind of a whole package that goes together. In the last 3 years, I created and moderated a project called the Minorities Project in an organization called Reservists On Duty. And that project basically brought up Muslims, Christians, Druze, Bedouins, and some of the South Lebanon Army community members as well, to join together and basically go abroad, both to Europe and both to the United States. Mainly in the United States, the organization works. But we wanted to present more perspective about life in Israel. We wanted to present more communities because not a lot of people know that Israel has minorities, that, you know, almost 25% of the Israeli population are not Jewish, and that we're living in a democracy, and that our lives here, they always could have been better, but they are better to everyone who's surrounding us from the Arab world and some of the advanced countries that I know of as well, regarding to our rights, regarding to our lives, regarding to our freedom. That is, you know, the basic thing that I'm always looking at. When I look back at Lebanon, I look what could have happened to me growing up in Lebanon with the rights that I have today in Israel and with the rights that I couldn't have in Lebanon. These two are completely different lives. One is miserable, one is happy and getting advanced more day by day. So at Reservists On Duty, we basically went to communities, both Christians, Muslims, and Jewish communities. We went to college campuses as well to talk about Israel and the idea of Israel and how we are integrating to the Israeli society. We always say that, you know, the reason that I'm always saying minorities of Israel is that just to kind of explain the situation to whoever doesn't know about this. But in Israel, we are just Israelis. So that's basically what connected all these communities to go abroad. Everyone brought his own different perspective and ideas. We are in a wider, even political thinking ideas because, you know, I wanted to present as many aspects as possible. And I think that we were really successful in doing that. And today well, because of coronavirus, so there's no flights, so there's no delegations. But hopefully after everything will go back to normal, we will be able to go back again and, you know, meet face to face and not only by camera and by Zoom. So I think this sums up the 30 minutes that I have to speak because I could continue for another hour if you want. but we would like Elkin to open it for questions.
Well, thank you very much, Jonathan. Amazing story, I must say. During your story, you talked about a crazy moment at Larnaca airport, but you said you would save that up if anyone of our audience was interested. So you can already predict the first question. What crazy thing happened at that airport?
Okay, so we had two crazy events at the airport. The one crazy event was that after we landed, when we were on our ways to go out, of the tunnel of the airport, it wasn't a tunnel actually. It was stairs. When we finished, getting down from the bus that took us from the plane to the airport, suddenly this man approached my mom and he said, "Are you the Elkhoury family?" And my mom freaked out. She didn't know who that person was. And he asked her again, "Are you the Elkhoury family?" And from my perspective, everyone looked suspicious. And once I saw my mom being nervous about this person, it made me freak out. But then immediately after the second time he asked her, "Are you the Elkhoury family?" he said that, "I have your husband on the phone." So then my mom calmed down and she understood that this person came to help us because he helped us go through security, through, the stamps at Larnaca airport and everything. So he just took us to the Israeli embassy. But the second crazy event that happened is when we were waiting to the flight to Israel. The gates in Larnaca airport, the one to Lebanon, the one to Israel, are like this close to each other. It's like one next to each other. And my mom wanted us to wait till the last second, to the last call to be able to go on the flight, because she was afraid that the flight to Lebanon that is leaving 5 minutes before the flight to Israel, someone would recognize us from those persons who flew in with us to Cyprus. So we were still waiting there, and suddenly when we started moving towards the Israeli gate, a woman that recognized my mom, she started yelling at us, come on, the doors are closing to the flight to Lebanon. And my mom, she was like, okay, yeah, we're coming. It's gonna take another few minutes. And then immediately when they shutted the door down, we ran to the Israeli door. And suddenly we noticed that there was a change of flight number. And my mom was freaking out because the ticket that she had in her hand was a different number from the flight that was going on to Israel. And she asked, I think maybe 5 flight attendants again and again, every step that we moved to, she asked again if this is the flight to Israel. And I think my mom didn't breathe for about 48 hours from the moment that she knew that that's it, we're leaving Lebanon, until we woke up in the morning and left to Beirut airport. All the time in Cyprus, the only moment that I saw her breathing a little bit is after we took off from Larnaca airport. Then my mom relaxed and said to herself, that's it. We are safe. Nothing could happen to us now. Only if the flight goes down. But nothing could happen to us. That was like her relief. And it kind of moved on to us as well. Because once she was relieved, we kind of sat in our seats more, calm and nice for the next 20 minutes of flight till we arrived to Israel.
Wow, that's a crazy story. Glad you made it, that you weren't stopped from that flight. I would just like to remind our audience again, if you have any questions, you can post them in the Q&A on Zoom. If you're not on Zoom at the moment, if you're listening from elsewhere, please click on the link provided to access Zoom if you have any questions you want to ask. Another question we have, in what way do you believe peace can be achieved between Israel and Lebanon?
Wow. I think one of the huge problems that we have in Lebanon today is that they are in an economic catastrophe that is happening like right now. People in Lebanon are starving. Electricity might go down any second. People are collecting, bread from trucks that are moving in the streets and kind of handing breads. Everyone is trying to buy candles. The currency in Lebanon is crushed. It used to be 1,500 Lebanese franc. Franc, I think it's Lebanon. Well, lira. I'm gonna always call it a lira because they changed it a few years ago. So the Lebanese lira is 1,500 Lebanese lira to $1. Now it's about 9,600 to $1. So things are escalating, and Hassan Nasrallah is really holding tight Lebanese politicians and Lebanese people on the ground as well. We have seen major and I think really important protests throughout the last few weeks in Lebanon, where they basically protesting against Hezbollah, saying that they want Hezbollah to be out of his weapon. They don't want them to control anymore in Lebanon, and that they want to be free again. They want to liberate themselves from the hands of Hassan Nasrallah and from the Iranian regime. So I think once this happened, there is a huge core inside of the Lebanese society that understands that normalization with Israel is basically another key for Lebanon to kind of get back on the track, both economically and both, kind of in a secure level. So I think if Hassan Nasrallah and Hezbollah will be kicked out of Lebanon and no other terrorist organization will take over, I think then they can start into building an achievement to peace between Israel and Lebanon. Because we used to have a peace agreement that was signed and immediately erased, I think a few days after, in 1983, after Bashir Gemayel, the Lebanese president, the Lebanese prime minister was assassinated by Syria and by the Palestinians for wanting to sign a peace agreement with Israel. His brother, who took over and won the Lebanese elections, kind of signed an agreement with Israel, but he immediately canceled it because of the huge opposition that he had back at the day. And I think he didn't want to be assassinated as his brother. So he canceled the agreement. And it's kind of still waiting to be signed again, and hope it will happen one day that I will be able to go and visit back my homeland.
Yes, because that brings me to the next question. Do you have any contact with your relatives who are still residing in Lebanon?
Unfortunately, we are not able to speak to them. Technically, we can do that. We can do that on WhatsApp. We can do that on Facebook. We can do that on every social possible. Even I can, pick up my phone and ring to their phone. But one of the things is that they are being moderated against, and we don't want to harm them. So we never call. We didn't even add them on Facebook or any social media. Like I mentioned before, we have relatives in the States, so we call them to make sure that they're fine, and that's how it works. All of my relatives are still in Lebanon. In Israel, we're only the core immediate family of my parents, my brother, and I. So imagine holidays with only 4 people for the last 20 years. No, we kind of got along with a few other families, but so this is the feeling that you're not with your wider family.
Yes, that must be very challenging. Regarding the Israeli decision back in 2000 to withdraw from Southern Lebanon, how do you look at it? Do you understand the Israeli decision? Because at the time it met a lot of criticism, and even today it's still being criticized quite a lot, considering terror group Hezbollah took over. Do you think Israel could have done things differently?
I think there's 3 aspects to be presented when we are speaking about the withdrawal. If we want to really make a deeper talk about it, there's the way of how the withdrawal happened. The other aspect is that it happened without any signed agreement with any organization or with any state to like kind of maintain peace. And the third option is whether the withdrawal should have happened to begin with. I would like to leave the one that if it should have happened or not, because I don't think that I'm kind of I think that eventually the withdrawal should have happened. But when we always talk about it from, for example, from the South Lebanon Army perspective to it, we always see it as some sort of being left behind, because we weren't noted about the withdrawal, and the withdrawal happened in a way that suddenly people started to notice that the IDF bases in South Lebanon are empty. There's no soldiers. There's some of the bases, there's no weapons anymore. There's no tanks. So people started to freak out, like, what is going on? And then immediately they went to the border and stood by the border because they were part of the South Lebanon Army and they knew that they were in danger. So for the first few hours, the borders were closed basically till a few soldiers that were standing there decided to open the border, and then came the general idea of bring them in, and we will let them have asylum. But one of the things that we're still having till today is that we're still facing few unsolved issues with the Israeli government, of some promises and some issues that they're still not solved till today. And we're always asked, so if all of that happened, why do you still support Israel? And why do you still serve in the national service or military? We have 95% of the South Lebanon Army kids serve in the national service or military service. These are huge numbers. We are, in general, these are huge percentages because we're only 680 families in Israel, about 3,500 people in general. But regarding to percentages, the majority of the South Lebanon Army community is really integrated. It's really part of the society, joins the national service and military service, because we separate these two issues. With Israel's right to exist, with the Israeli general population that welcomed us, that hugged us, that helped us, and with the Israeli government. These are two kind of parallel levels that will never meet, because, you know, we're always going to have some sort of criticism towards the government. But the people themselves, those are the people who actually helped us survive through what we went through and helped us go again on our feet, because a lot of them even served in Lebanon and they already knew some of the soldiers who came to Israel and got shelter in Israel. So if we want to talk about it really in general, we will only talking about the way that the withdrawal happened. That basically showed that Israel is a little bit weak because it kind of led, people say that it kind of led, high-ranked officers say that it led to the second Intifada, because they saw that, a small struggle by a small terrorist organization back at the day could have made Israel leave a place. So in his victory speech, Hassan Nasrallah said to the Palestinians, look what we did, imagine what you can do. So I believe that this has kind of led to the second Intifada as well.
Perhaps parallels can be found regarding this unilateral withdrawal, Israel withdrawing from Southern Lebanon without any signed agreements, and Israel withdrawing from the Gaza Strip in 2005 without any signed agreements. Yeah. And also in both cases, in Southern Lebanon, Hezbollah, and in the Gaza Strip, Hamas, terror groups taking over.
Yeah.
And also
same new name.
Yes, and also both terror groups seem to be much more powerful than during the days of withdrawal.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you consider Hezbollah to be a force, considering its strength today, that can be weakened enough so that, because as you said, Hezbollah needs to be kicked out for Israeli Lebanese peace to be achievable. But is that, considering the strength of Hezbollah today, is that a realistic dot on the horizon?
If we're military speaking, I think that Hezbollah is getting stronger day by day, both by targeted missiles and both by, they had, from 2012 till today, they had all these trainings in Syria because they fought alongside of Assad. So they are more trained, for example, than 2006, the second Lebanese war, where Israel fought against Hezbollah, in a general war. I think that the only way to weaken them is by the Lebanese population. This is the only way that we could ever fight and win against Hezbollah, only by the Lebanese population and the Lebanese citizens, because they are in between Lebanese villages, homes, schools, churches. They have rocket factories alongside of the Beirut International Airport. So once the population of Lebanon will understand that Hezbollah is only harming them and only leading them towards war, not Israel. Israel is not fighting against the Lebanese people or the Lebanese government or the Lebanese military. They're fighting against a terrorist organization. They're fighting against Hezbollah. So once they realize that and start activating and kind of opposing Hezbollah in much higher vocal voices than it is today, I think that's what could actually weaken them. Or it could lead to a civil war. That's one of the two.
Do you believe the West could help in this, the European Union, the United States, in helping the Lebanese population, or would that be considered an unwanted foreign intervention?
I kind of see that. Let's take the European Parliament, for example. You mentioned them. One of my major problems is that they have two declarations about Hezbollah. One declaration is that their political side is considered to be okay, but their military side, their militia side, is considered to be a terrorist organization. But the thing is that they are led by the same person. There's only one chairman to the Hezbollah terrorist organization, and it's Hassan Nasrallah. So how come you say that half of this pie is eatable, but the other half is not eatable? So I think that in order to start this kind of a world recognition of Hezbollah being a terrorist organization, the EU needs to change their definition about Hezbollah and declare all of its fractions as terrorist organization. That could lead to more European countries not to actually deal with the political side of Hezbollah and kind of isolate them in a way that they would be forced out outside of Lebanon. I really hope that, we always, as Christian, we always say that the Christian world kind of forgot the Christians who are living in the Middle East. Because we saw what happened from 2011 till now when ISIS went even, higher, and they started slaughtering and massacring Christians. They didn't massacre only Christians, they massacred the Yazidis and other non-believers by their definition that were Muslims. But the world kept its silence about it. When we look at the numbers of the Christians prior to 2011 till today, you can see that there's only one place where the Christian population only grew up, that is Israel. Where even in Lebanon, where it was supposed to be a Christian country, there's about 30% Christians left today after the civil war and all what happened there. In Syria as well, there's about 1,500,000 out of 10 million before ISIS took power and before the civil war in Syria. It goes the same way to Iraq and to all over the Middle East. And this is something that we kind of see as if, we are forgotten by the Christian and even by the secular world that lives in Europe and the United States.
Well, regarding recognizing Hezbollah as a terrorist organization, at least now some member states of the European Union are recognizing Hezbollah as a whole as a terror group. The Netherlands was the first one, by the way, already back in 2004. And recently, Germany, one of the major EU member states, has recognized Hezbollah. So hopefully that will push for
a few
more.
months ago.
Yes, so hopefully that will push more EU member states and the European Union as a whole to entirely recognize Hezbollah.
I really hope so.
Yes. Regarding what you said about feeling neglected by the Christians and the seculars in the Western world, what do you believe can be done by Christians here in the West regarding the current situation of Christians in Lebanon to both safeguard them and make sure their community stays alive and flourishing?
So I think one of the major problems is that, you know, a lot of European countries think that one way to kind of solve a solution is to open the borders for immigration. I don't always believe in that. Because these people, like myself, we didn't want to leave Lebanon. We had to leave eventually Lebanon because otherwise we would be dead today. The people who flee to Europe as well, if we're going to say about the Christian population, the majority of them didn't want to leave their countries, didn't want to leave where they were born, where they grew up, where their parents grew up, where their heritage is. They wanted to kind of have a back to help them stay where they were supposed to stay, basically, and get their countries to get even better and better and kind of modernize them and make them more successful. And I think one of the major problems is that instead of trying to help them fight against the terror organization in their countries, they just open the border and kind of let them in and kind of forget what is going on in these countries. And then those countries are being even falling deeper in the muds than they used to be before. And then they kind of lost a lot of population that could have helped them resettle back the economy or resettle back kind of the population is in those areas. So I think a back from, you know, being in our backs, helping us survive and helping us kind of gaining control once again. And I know that a lot of countries don't like to send soldiers. I'm not saying that they should send soldiers, but I think that they should think more outside of the box in ways that they could have helped more than just opening their borders, because that doesn't help both sides.
Right, because there has been a UN peace force, UNIFIL, in Southern Lebanon for some time, with the objective listed as disarming all groups, which is obviously meant at Hezbollah. But for the last few years, we've seen the contrary to be true of what's happening. Do you believe UNIFIL should be given more powers to be able to fulfill their objectives?
I think one of the problems that the UN wasn't really, how do you say it? They weren't really out by saying what is happening in Southern Lebanon, because there's the 2006 resolution that states that Hezbollah is not able to cross this point to get closer to the Israeli border. But we know that Hezbollah stayed in that area. Not only that they crossed it, but they are located in the majority of that area. The UN knew about it. The UN is facing trouble from Hezbollah fractions and militants, terrorists. Every other day, UN soldiers have been beaten out, have been killed by bombs that they were put to them. They were shot at. And instead of actually stating in their statements that happened because Hezbollah attacked us, they stated that it was an unfriendly occasion. So I find it really funny, because if the UN wants to be present, they need to be present and actually, doing something, and not only watching aside. And I think that's what the UN is doing today, and this is wrong. They need to be more involved in what is happening. And I kind of see it really hypocritical when they always target Israel in the General Assembly or in the Defense Assembly in the UN, while they forget all what is going on, both in Syria, both in Lebanon, both all over the Middle East. And this is something that we Israelis find really irritating. And not only that is, in our ways, not responsible for an international organization that size, but it's kind of shows that in a way they don't really have any power, because they're not interested in doing that. So they're doing nothing.
Right. Let's see if we have another question. Do you believe any other factors contribute to Europeans and Americans neglecting the current situation of Christians both in the Middle East and Northern Africa, besides what you already mentioned of opening borders but not doing anything else?
No one is talking about it. This is one of the major things. I faced that when we came to Israel, when the Arabic population, for example, didn't know what we went through during the 60s and 70s. We didn't have the media or even the possibility to speak out as possible. But today we have these possibilities. We have not only social media that can get to everywhere in the world, but we have so many major news outlets that are not speaking about it, not mentioning it. For example, did you know that the UN's organization, while ISIS was working, while ISIS was slaughtering people in Iraq, many of them flew to Jordan. And did you know that the Jordanian authorities refused the Christians to enter the refugee camps put by the UN?
I had no
They had
idea.
to open their own organizations. In Israel, we were a group of people who tried to help out the Christians in Jordan, to get them, to facilitate them with some work clothes or some food. And we were kind of picking up donations for them. But the UN didn't say any word, and they knew it was their camps.
Wow, that's very saddening. But let's hopefully end on a positive note. Let's say if peace will be achieved between Lebanon and Israel, what effect will this have on the Middle East as a whole?
It was always believed that Lebanon will be the second country to make peace with Israel, but today I think they're going to be the last country to do so. So I don't think it will have much effect. I think that Lebanon will be affected by other Arab countries who will sign agreements with Israel. And they will notice that they have no other options, because not only that we're in the same neighborhood, but we have a border. And we need to take advantages of that border. Because I know that, in Israel we have 9 million people. Let's say 8,999,999 want to visit Lebanon. And the same goes to Lebanon with a lot of people who I speak with and who contact me, because I speak on Twitter all about the situation between Lebanon and Israel and what is going on in Lebanon. And I publish about my story and everything. So a lot of people approach me to speak to me about how this could work and what could they help to spread out the world. And when we talk, they always talk about how they saw pictures of Israel and they want to visit and they want to have peace. So this is kind of the general idea that I'm hoping that we'll get more, Israel is ready for peace with Lebanon. The question is when Lebanon will be ready to do so. I hope that the Lebanese people will eventually, take their future in their own hands and not let Hezbollah do their own business on behalf of them, or not on behalf, stepping on them and doing their things. So really hope so that we will have peace between Lebanon and Israel. And this would be like a dream, the biggest dream that I have, peace between Lebanon and Israel.
On that note, thank you very much, Jonathan Elkhoury. For audience at home, you can follow Jonathan on Twitter. Your Twitter handle is Jonathan_Elk, ELK. So anyone interested in following Jonathan, you can do so on Twitter. If you like, for our audience at home, if you like this lecture and you would like to contribute to it, you can donate to CIDI. You can do so at cidi.nl and click on Steun ons. You can become a friend of CIDI, basically a patron, or you can make a donation. Every single donation is very much appreciated so we can continue this work. Of course, if you're not already doing so, you can follow CIDI on Twitter, Facebook, email, Instagram. And thank you again, Jonathan Elkhoury, for this amazing story.
Thank you, Elkan and CIDI, for having me. It was a great time.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.